thanks very much for everyone who might be here or not. It's a bit of an experiment. I think, during these times it's been difficult to sort of connect with other people, and I've been inspired by really great other designers who've started sort of streaming, and I thought I would give it a go. It's going to be a bit to get used to. I've had to sort of move things around, and hopefully you can both see and hear me, but please let me know in the chat if for whatever reason that is difficult or not. I'm just going to quickly check. Let's see how I'm set up here. Great. Okay, that seems to be working. Good. All right, I think I've worked out most of the. Well done, Michael. You're here. Thank you. You have to keep up that run now for the the remainder of how many streams I might end up doing. But thanks very much for coming on, and I see Mandela's here as well. Nice to see you. Thanks again for joining at somewhat late notice. Hope everyone's having a nice Friday, a nice end to the week. I've got a nice cup of Earl Grey tea, which is definitely a good way to end the week on my end. Unfortunately, it's a bit dark and rainy here, so I've done my best to sort of keep everything a bit lighter. So yeah, how's everyone been? Everyone's finished work, I guess. Working on games maybe, or other things. Yeah, it was actually it was a nice mix of a day for me. It was sort of a good example of life of a game designer slash scientist. I've had a mixture of meetings. As we all know, like life happens primarily on Zoom and everything like this. But I had a really exciting meeting about working on actually a publication about an educational game that I was involved in making, and I'm hoping that actually, if I keep doing this streaming kind of thing, that I'll probably talk more about that. I helped design a game for the Diamond Light Source, which is a synchrotron based in the UK, which I actually used as a researcher, as a chemistry researcher, in my day job. And a friend there sort of approached me. They had an idea to make a game to try and teach school children about the science they do at the synchrotron, and it's gone really, really well. We're even about to sort of print physical copies of the game to send out to schools. And we did a print play because of COVID, sort of interrupted a lot of those things. So, and now we're writing a paper on it. So it's sort of come full circle. Sort of started with my scientific career. It moved into the sort of gaming world with game design, and now we're back making a scientific publication for a journal of science communication. And actually, I think there's some really interesting things that to share with the game design community, because we also look at things like accessibility and how do you think about visual accessibility, cognitive accessibility in games, which is obviously applicable to not just educational games but far beyond that. But yeah, so I think for this first stream, I even have written a small little note here about what I'm trying to do. I guess I can probably have this here, and it's gonna. Yeah, I'm still trying to work out. I have two monitors, and weirdly enough, it's a bit easier to actually just watch myself on the main screen. So on this very small note, I should note that I'm not sure if other game designers have this thing, but I have basically an infinite supply of. I've got them here on my desk, sort of infinite supply of old playtest cards, which I use as notes that whenever I need to take notes. So I have no need for new post-its for probably the next 300 years, I'd imagine. But yeah, I think the plan roughly was going to be a little bit of sort of general chat and kind of getting used to this idea of streaming. And then I have a couple of things to show, which are kind of new things that have come in the mail. So as a game designer, obviously one of the nicest parts actually is when you get to receive the physical copy of one of your new games for the first time. And I thought it's kind of an appropriate thing maybe to share with other people. The interesting thing is, for those who don't know, I live now in Prague in the Czech Republic, and there's this interesting tradition, especially for creative people, for people who write books or sometimes release films or have exhibitions. You essentially present this new work, usually at a party. It can be big or small, or a small gathering with friends and family, and you are sort of celebrating that new thing. And they specifically they talk about sort of a godfather. So you choose, if you've written a new book, you get a godfather for that book who will present it at the party, will say a few words, and then they still, a bit like, I guess, how you do with ships, you break a bottle of champagne on the hull or something, but they always try and pour a bit of champagne over whatever object it is, which of course, funnily enough, with books, it doesn't quite work, because I was at one a few weeks ago, before all these sort of lockdowns and things, but where it was for a small book, and the author was like, please don't pour champagne over my book, so they just put it over one small corner or something. Of course, with games it might be a bit easier if you still had the cling film on. So in that, it's sort of, I suppose I hadn't really experienced it when I lived in England or Australia, of course there would be launch parties, but it wasn't this sort of ingrained ritual. And as game designers, often a lot of the work you do is very solitary in a way, and you don't always get to enjoy new releases with the people as they play them. So, having an opportunity maybe to share that kind of experience in this new virtual world that we're all living in, is the way it is. So yeah, I also got another surprise parcel today, which I guess I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting it today. The post office is a little bit 50-50 whether they'll actually ever deliver a parcel to our apartment or not. But thankfully, I won the coin flip today, so I have another parcel, which I think is a cool thing, and I'll show that off in a little bit. I was sort of thinking about what do I want the stream to be about, and if you have. I should say also, if you ever want to say something in the chat or any questions about game design at any time, just let me know. Always happy. I'm pretty flexible, and I don't have really a set thing of what I want to talk about. I think it was trying to share, a little bit of the experience of being a designer, trying to build up a bit of a community, because something that the combined thing of working more and more at home during lockdown, and also just game design in general, not necessarily being around a lot of other people, I thought it'd be nice to have that. I should do a huge shout out, and Michael's here in the audience, to some other game designers who really inspired me, and game personalities, not necessarily designers, people like Ross from More Game Please, Michael over at Idle Michael is his channel, but he's a designer and developer of hard games. And Theo Revere, who's a French game designer and a good friend, who have all, been streaming for various lengths of time, and I've found a lot of comfort going onto their streams and feeling just a little bit less alone, or having it on in the background. And so I thought, well, maybe, yes, this is go and click on. I don't know if it works if they click on your profile, Michael, if that takes them to your channel. Or feel free to put the link in the chat if that should be fine. But I'd encourage to go and follow those folk if you don't already. They're really fantastic people, and just it's a nice thing to make you feel a little less alone. I might also something I've wanted to do for quite a while is sort of do what are they called? Because in digital games, they sort of talk about when they look back at an old release, or I'm forgetting the word now. They try and think about what went wrong or what went right, and it's sort of usually a few years after something's been released. I wanted to sort of do a slight twist on that. Maybe I was going to go back into the files on my computer and see if I went to the oldest file I've created for a game, if I could still remember what that game was for, especially obviously if it didn't get published. I think it might be sort of instructive for those out there starting designing or still designing, just to see kind of what percentage of projects actually make it to a final, well, A, get finished at all, you know, whether they're published or not, and B, which don't even make it past, you know, an initial prototype. One of the things I talk about in interviews a lot is one of my skills is being able to make an initial prototype pretty well. Post-mortem, yes, Bez has got it. Thank you, Bez, and welcome, thanks. And Ross is here as well. Ross, you must have heard me talking about you. I just talked about you about a minute ago, saying, and Bez actually also huge inspiration in terms of designers streaming during these times. I was sort of saying that, you know, it's been an inspiration for me to just give it a go. Yes, your spidey senses were tingling. And I was saying that anyone who's watching should go and follow these people's streams, because they're A, really fantastic, and I think just a good way to sort of stay in touch with the community. So firstly, thanks to you folk, and yeah, hopefully let's see how this journey goes of this rambling of mine. So I'm going to try and keep to some sort of structure. So yeah, so I might show some old prototype files, and maybe I'll go through one or two per stream and see if I can remember, you know, that game I tried to design 10 years ago and made one prototype of. It's going to be actually more entertaining and fun than you might think, because I am very, very bad at writing rules, especially for early prototypes. I don't think that's such a bad thing, realistically, because I think anything you can do to just get a game ready, don't put barriers in the way and say, I must write some rules. But, you know, it's, you know, so if you don't have that, but of course, going back and trying to do this post-mortem is quite difficult. So let's see how that goes. Ross, yeah, well, Ross, you're just such a kind person, and yeah, really positive. So I'm hoping to channel your positivity, you know, for other people. So yeah, no, thanks very much for that. Yeah, no worries, Bez. Hope you good luck with all your stuff. I hope your packages are there. Thankfully, mine were delivered today. And the last thing, if we've got some time, is I also kind of wanted to just share some games that I enjoy playing that are not necessarily tabletop games. Obviously, it's a bit hard to do. I don't have an amazing setup yet to actually play through tabletop games on stream, but there's a few digital games I thought I'd try. And the first one I thought that I might show on stream is a great game called Tiny Island. Tiny Islands, actually, by David King, which I might show a little bit later on. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Oh, thanks very much, Michael. That's really kind of you. And well, I'll let's see. I mean, I don't know how the rest of you stream. I mean, for those who do when you start streaming, I mean, how does it feel? Because right now it is this sort of strange. You have this sort of strange one-sided communication, and you're like, well, you know, you want to be interesting, you want to keep talking, but at the same time, you just hope you're making sense. So maybe I need some sort of like I'll need like a 10-minute, you know, every 10 minutes somebody needs to go, yeah, you're still followable, or it's not. Or at the other time, I've descended into some sort of, you know, babbling stream of, you know, subconsciousness, and then it's just great sort of background music to get other work done. So please use this stream as inspiration or merely relaxation for your other tasks of a Friday evening. I'm here for you for whatever you need. So without further ado, the first things up is an unboxing. So a bit of an introduction, I guess. So those of you may or might know, a game series which I was involved in designing along with Phil Walker Harding of Sushi Go, Baron Park. I'm looking at my shelves now to remember more. Witch's House? No, it's called Hexen House in German, but I'm now another Lookout game. Phil Walker Harding, amazing designer, another Australian, which is nice. We designed a series of games called The Adventure Games, and the first ones were released a couple of years ago, and you can see behind me. The first two were The Dungeon, here, and in English it's Monochrome Inc. This is actually the German copy, that's why it's Die Monochrome AG. And these are sort of slightly inspired by the old choose your own adventure point and click video games. Like for me, actually, the bigger influences were the Myst series and Riven in particular. These sort of open exploration games with mystery and puzzle and narrative. And we wanted to kind of, you know, bring that idea and that feeling back into modern games. And we had a really great meeting when I went back to Sydney a few years ago, and just, you know, we just sort of vibed on this. And actually, you know, I'm sure on the channel I'll talk about different, you know, the genesises of different ideas in games. But for this, actually, it was one of the quickest sort of idea to publication stages or journeys I've ever had. Actually, we had the idea in sort of December, January. We met only twice when we were in Sydney. We quickly made a prototype. I pitched it to Cosmos February, or like late January, early February at the Nuremberg Toy Fair. And then by the next Nuremberg, they were already showing off sort of pre-production copies of the first two games. So, you know, a year and 3 months, something like that, from idea to publication, which is absolutely not normal at all. We were extremely lucky. It was one of those funny meetings when you sit down with publishers at shows. There's lots of things that you're sort of juggling when you're talking to them, and sometimes you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't show them this game because they already have something in their line already that it's too similar, and you know, publishers don't want to publish a game that's like something they already have because it'll compete with the same slot in their catalog. And why do they need another game that's going to you know, compete with what they want? So I went into the meeting, and I always thought, oh, you know, I had the adventure games in my bag, and I thought, oh, well, they do Exit already, and it's not the same, but it's sort of in the same world, and it probably won't fit. And it was only really because the developer that I always meet with, Wolfgang Lüdke, who's extremely experienced. He's been doing it for, I want to say, something on like 25 years for Cosmos. Wolfgang, I don't think is watching. Although actually I was thinking, and you let me know whether this would be interesting, I actually would like to interview developers possibly on the stream. I think I haven't really seen many interviews specifically with developers, and it's interesting because it's, I guess, one of the, not unique, but it's one of the main interactions as a designer I have with publishers. And there are some of these developers who I've been lucky enough to meet for basically, you know, sadly this year there was no spiel, but you know, once or twice for the last, you know, 8 or 9 years. So, you know, they're even friends, and you work on projects together, and you form a relationship. And actually, I think there's a lot of good work on BGG at the moment to try and think about, you know, who. Sorry, adding a new field to BGG for developers specifically, and also a whole range of other people who work on games to try and recognize their contributions. And I actually think, yeah, there are a lot of amazing developers all around the world who are extremely experienced. And in a way, actually, if they were known for all the things they're doing, I think they would be just as famous as some of the big designers, because some of these developers have really worked on, you know, you name it. I mean, for Wolfgang, for example, you pretty much name any Cosmos title that's done really well, he's worked on it in the past 20 years. So that's kind of incredible. Some other people who come to mind, people like Croc and Philip Moray at Space Cowboys, or Asmodee before that. You know, Adrian Martineau at Days of Wonder. You know, there's some really amazing people and some great stories, and yeah, it would be great to have them on. So I see there's a little bit of interest. Thanks Nicola and Brandbeard Gaming, welcome. And yeah, thanks for the interest of that, and Russ as well. So yeah, we'll that who knows where this journey will go. But I must admit, I'm kind of enjoying it so far. I was very, very nervous before I sat down, but you've all been very, very kind, and thank you very much for putting stuff in the comments. It makes me feel just a little less like that I'm talking to myself in my attic or kind of weird mezzanine. The apartment is actually we're at one very big loft, so I have a mezzanine office So if you hear typing in the background, that's my fiance typing away, but trying to we're trying to co-work in the same space. So she's very kind to let me do this. Well, no, well, I don't know. That's very kind of you, Michael. I have a feeling that I think you all folks are really helping out, and so thank you for that. Yeah, Ross, no, that's a good point, and I think if that's of interest to people, I'm definitely happy to to just shed some light on it. And I think even if you're not interested in designing games, I think there's some really interesting stories there. And yeah, it's definitely a different sort of process because you're taking on someone else's vision and trying to fit into your own. And actually even just that relationship that you form through meeting with authors time and time again, and the different things that come from that. So any case, adventure games. Thankfully, they've done reasonably well. Actually, I should say they're probably my best-selling game in terms of units. Yeah, that's actually absolutely true. Although I guess if you kind of combine them all together, because it's this kind of a series of games. So these were the first two that were released, and the third one is called Volcanic Island. It was actually the first one that Phil and I weren't directly involved in writing. We kind of helped develop a little bit, but it was written sort of internally within Cosmos. And the fourth one, which has just been released in German in the past, I think it was a couple of months ago, actually, is called Grand Hotel Abaddon. And this week, I was sent a couple copies from Cosmos. So it's not available in English yet. So for those, I'm guessing most of the people watching this are English speakers, native English speakers. So I would look for Volcanic Island, which is the newest one out, of course, along with The Dungeon and Monochrome Inc., if you wanted English. The other point why it's quite important with language with these is that they have made some amazing voice recording apps. So one of the main things in the game is that you're looking up entries in a book. So when you try something, when you want to check the window, or you want to use a spanner on a door or something, you basically look up an entry in a book, and there's a printed book, which I hope there's in here when I open it. But there's also an app. Cosmos has a great app, and you can type the number into the app, and then it'll actually read the entry with some amazing voice acting. And that is a real highlight. And we've got lots of positive feedback from people who played the game. So it's definitely worth seeking that out when you play, if that sounds good to you. So let's open it. I did quickly slip the cling wrap because I didn't know if you'd have this awkward few minutes while I sort of fumbled with the cling film on stream. So yeah, it's this sort of typical exit-sized box. And for me, actually, the kind of exciting thing is that I haven't actually seen much of the artwork. So Phil and I, actually, this is the first one we collaborated really directly together to write together this one. So for the first two, I did Monochrome Inc. and Phil did The Dungeon, although we obviously gave feedback to each other. But this one was a real co-writing effort, essentially. I should also say that, speaking of developers and other people work on games, there are a number of people with these that actually should be pointed out. And actually, Cosmos is very, very good. And I don't know if people know other examples in the chat, but they're very good at, on the back of the box, they actually have a very detailed sort of list of really breaking down what the different aspects of people who work on these are. So, they have spiel idea, or sort of, I guess, the original idea for the game, and scenario. So they have a sort of a credit for that. In this case, it's Phil and I. This is where I'm guessing what I've seen the English version, I think. So text, sort of ghostwriting. So that's sort of rewriting what Phil and I originally wrote. Obviously, Phil and I aren't we aren't professional writers. So Cosmos employs a ghostwriter to kind of punch up what we've written. Of course, also because we write in English and then it has to be translated in German. And so Ut Weiland, I'm so very sorry, I'm butchering these names. And she did the work on this and on actually the whole series so far has helped at various points. And they've got obviously the illustrators. and then there's obviously developers also who've worked on that. So yeah, I get to see the artwork. So this is so this is a sort of a kind of haunted house sort of theme. So you've been invited to sort of the reopening of this Grand Hotel Abaddon, this sort of spooky place that's often has been sort of abandoned and has a sort of spooky past. And while you're there, well, of course, some very strange things start happening, and you've got to work out what's going on in the Grand Hotel Abaddon. So once you pop open the box, you have your rule book. So it's, for those who are familiar with exit games, it's a similar sort of thing. It's telling you, there's a bit of a warning not to look at all the material. So in some of these, there's punch board that you don't want to look on the back side of, because that's a bit of a surprise. So you've got to be careful with that. And, you've got all the kind of, obviously the rules. It's actually it's a fairly straightforward game, and I'll show a little bit of how it works in a sec. You also have a bunch of hints. So these, basically you can, if you have a particular number or a particular card that you don't really know how to use, you can look up here. It might give you a hint. And then, there's a bit of a scoring thing on the back. And Cosmos, I will point out, does a really good job of putting a bit of information about the authors. Not to sound completely, self-conceited, but it's nice that they prioritize. You have a photo and you have a little bit of a short little bio. Again, just to remember that actual people have made these things. So that's really nice that they do that. So that is the rulebook, and then the main feature. I'm actually going to drink a bit of tea because otherwise I will just keep talking and talking and talking. Bram says works for a toy store. Yeah, it is the kind of thing that would work well for Pandemic, and actually it's great. You can play it solo. You can play up to sort of 1 to 4 players is a good count. So yeah, if you're sort of in one household or even by yourself, it's great to play. And it's even possible, if you have a reasonable setup to show, you could even play it over Zoom. Actually, I think that the main sort of shared thing is the location cards, but you can easily put them up to a camera. And if you all have the app, then you can kind of also experience that. So that would be great. So it's that's good. No, I'm glad that it's reaching that kind of audience. So the next thing is the adventure book, or the adventure book, as I've just again butchered. So this is about, it's like 64 pages. So there's a lot of stuff in there, and there's lots and lots of entries, which are basically all the things you can kind of check out during the game. And one of the key things in the game is that you're basically also sometimes combining items with locations. So there's not just the actual numbers on the cards, but then there's combinations between cards and other cards and all these sort of thing. Hi Paul, thanks for coming. I'll be here for a little bit longer hopefully. So thanks very much for dropping in. And hi Jay Foolsguard, welcome to the stream. So yes, that's adventure book, quite important. But of course, if you play with the app, then you don't actually need this. And then actually this one's a bit, so we have a bunch of punch board, and this is a non-spoilery punch board, sort of the same. So you can see at the top, these are the 4 different characters that you're able to play in the game. And actually a really cool thing about this is that the characters, little secret characters, actually have personal goals and missions and storylines. So there's the main storyline, but actually each character has their own unique little sub-mission, sub-storyline, which is a new thing for this game thing. Paul, this is actually the 4th one. It's only just been out in German. It's the Grand Hotel Abaddon. The 3rd one, which is Volcanic Island, has just come out in English. I'm pretty sure it should be available in English now, or very, very soon. And I guess this one will be next year sometime. And the 5th one has been put in. It's been announced. It'll be, and I might show it near the end of the stream. So you get punch board, and so these are, you just punch them out, and so these are the figures, and there's little standees for them to go on the locations, and you move around. So you get that, and I've just dropped a bit of the punch on the floor, but that's fine. Now I won't show. This is a bit of a new thing too. Here's a bit of spoiler punch board. So when it tells you to take certain numbers, then you get a different set of punch board. I'll leave it up as a surprise what might be on the other side. Oh, it looks very interesting, but the artwork's nice. So that's the secret punch board. And then, so then we have a bit more of the sort of, so these are location cards. And so this is one of the two core components, I guess, of what you'll be actually playing with. And these represent locations which you will lay out to form the actual place that you're taking part in the adventure. And they'll form the kind of almost map that you'll kind of explore. So this is in fact the dining room of the Grand Hotel Aban. And there you can already see kind of how the game works. There's different numbers, and basically when you're in this location, you can just check out any one of these things by going to that number, and then it'll describe what you see and maybe give you a little clue what you might want to do there. And this is actually where you start. And I think they've done actually a really, really nice job. I mean, I probably will show another interesting episode could be looking at how far the original prototype art goes to the final product, because I am no artist whatsoever, nor graphic designer. I'm absolutely terrible. And when we had the idea for these games and you realize what you're going to have to do, actually, this was one of the hardest things, even finding images for a prototype that made sense, that were interesting. I was often just grabbing sort of screenshots from video games as a first thing, which meant that the scenarios and the stories I actually changed to fit the images I could find rather than the other way around. So it's an interesting kind of creative process. Ross, I definitely remember. I played a prototype version of these, a kind of a later prototype version of these with Ross at Aircon. Wow. Yeah, another blast from the past. Weird side thing that happened this year was that I was about to go to Aircon when they announced the lockdown here in the Czech Republic. So I was literally going to be on a train up to Harrogate, and instead I had to rush and book a flight to get to Prague before they shut the borders. So I was sorry not to be there. It could have been the last chance to see you, Ross, I guess. But thankfully we actually saw each other earlier this year before everything with Efka and Elaine. So that was good. But anyway, so these are the locations, and as the game goes on, you'll reveal more and more of them. There'll be more options. You can move around. Things might change in the locations. Maybe new things will visit. Maybe there'll be other characters. Who knows? And there's a whole sort of stack of them. About 20 or so. They've done a really, really great job. I mean, lots of really great detail. If you see the photos, the kind of photographs, which are quite important for the story. They've done a really, really, really nice job with that. And then we have the other main component, which are the adventure cards. So these represent items, missions, all sorts of things that you can discover during the game that are taken by the characters. And then often one of the most common things is that you essentially can use items which also have a number. So for example, this cork, it's like flash, and I guess it's bottle, right? So it's like a cork from a bottle, has a number 82. And if I want to use this somewhere, so say at a location 101, I would simply type in 82101, and that's me trying to use the cork. So maybe there's a bottle on a table, and next to it, that's location 101. Maybe I want to put the cork in the bottle, for example. So, you've got all sorts of things, trying not to completely, but, all sorts of items, some more, interesting than others. And who knows what will go on. So so there's about 100 cards or so for those. And finally, you've got these kind of like plastic standees for your characters. So that's it. A big difference to the Exit games, for those who've played Exit, these games are not, you don't destroy anything at all. So don't have a fear. You can play it, pass it on to your friends, family. A great thing, I guess, during this pandemic, you can play it yourself and then share it with someone else, and see what happened, because these have different endings depending on what you do. They're not necessarily completely replayable because there are certain things that you already know, but you can certainly take different decisions that will affect what ends up happening. So it exists. It's a physical thing. That's where we've that's where it's an interesting comparison. On one side, they've got these are the adventure games so far, and this is the Volcanic Island, which I haven't shown yet, which is the third one. And then you look on the other side, it's like, and here's all the exits. So fingers crossed, maybe one day might be a similar number. I don't know. No, I mean, Exit's an amazing story, and it would be great to get Wolfgang on to talk about the development of those, amongst other things. Yeah, so that's Grand Hotel Abaddon. Thank you very much, Cosmos, for sending me my copies, which they should do. Sorry, I'm so used to sort of hearing it, reviewers or something. Thanks to Publisher X for sending these copies. Obviously, these are slightly contractually obliged, so thanks for that. But always, it's nice. It was nice to get them so quickly after it's been released. So yeah, that's Grand Hotel Abaddon, which I can sort of now add. Oh, this is so very well planned. I can now add it to the pile before everything falls down behind me, which might happen soon. Yeah. So yeah, anyone have any sort of fun plans for this evening? Any games that you're playing online? Anything like that? I should check whether there's anything in the. I have to admit, this StreamYard. Thank you for completing your good. Yes, I will. I'll preface that before any sort of new games that I receive from my copies of the games. So I'll try. Michael's going to be playing some Hades. I have to. Maybe that could be something. I don't know if I would want to try that on stream. It's so many people are talking about it, and I feel like I have to try it. I don't know if it's on Mac or not. That's often one of the sticking points for these things, because I'm only on Mac, so I might not be able to play it. I'm not much of a shooter or a kind of, action gamer at all. But I think it's one of those games that, people talking about in the sort of various systems, and the narrative aspects seem very interesting to me. So maybe I should definitely give that a go. Yes, I would buy a Switch, Michael, but I don't know. It's a bit weird. I'm a bit worried that I would buy it and then I just wouldn't use it very often. I feel like I buy enough games on Steam or apps. I had Apple Arcade for a while, and I just don't. It's the curse of being a designer. You end up just working on games a lot instead of actually getting time to play games. But maybe I should end up getting a Switch. I'd really love to play. I've never played any Zelda games either, and Breath of the Wild. Yes, Breath of the Wild on Switch is sort of something I would definitely like to try. Oh, thanks very much, Bram. Yeah, okay, so I can try it on Mac. So maybe if everyone wants to laugh at me, I can try it on stream sometime. That will also be a new experience, trying to describe what's going through my head. When I play games, I'm not very good at, nobody usually narrates their move unless they really want to annoy everybody else, maybe. But I guess that's something you have to get used to when you're streaming. Thank you very much, Ross, for the great support that you will laugh at me no matter what, and I encourage everybody to be laughing at me. That's my my gift to the world, something to laugh at, which hopefully might help. 20% off. Okay, all right. Okay. I will check out Hades later this evening. I've got a little bit hooked on Feast for Odin actually recently, weirdly enough. So yeah, as a physical game, I just got the 2 mini expansions for the first box. I can't get the English edition in the Czech Republic at the moment. Tempted to get the German one, but I've actually been really enjoying playing it solo even, and I played it quite a bit with Treasy, my fiance, 2 players, and it works quite well. So yeah, getting back into a little bit of digital gaming is also a good thing to try. Yeah, no, I know that failing's a big part of Hades. So yeah, well, let's see how we go. And oh, okay. So Ross is okay, all right. Plans will be made for Hades. So what is next on the schedule? Because I guess my academic background is sort of breaking in. Everyone has been in the same instance where you have a meeting that people just keep talking and you never get on to the next thing. Feast for Odin. Yeah. Yes. Can you play it online? Okay, well, I'd love to play Feast for Odin online. Yeah, so let's do that. The next kind of surprise thing that came in the mail, which I knew in the back of my head was coming, although I didn't expect it today necessarily, is the board game book, which was a Kickstarter, I believe it may have been late last year or early this year, from Owen Duffy. I'm going to check, because if I've got that wrong, that is really, really bad, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so Owen Duffy, yes, is the main editor, and with a number of amazing sort of contributors. This is the second edition, volume 2, and basically it takes it's sort of like a review of a select number of games from the year. So here's a sort of sample. So they have a either a single or double spread for each game. There's a bit of a description, and the really great thing about this, and as a designer, if someone's interested in design, is they often have interviews with the designers, talking about design process. So sort of mini design diaries, but they're kind of interviews because they're questions from the journalists. So this is Robin David, a great Irish designer, on letterpress, and you've got a really nice set of questions, sort of talking about the design process, things that went into it, and it has chapters, and it also is kind of nicely divided up into games of the year, casual games, light strategy games, medium strategy games, complex strategy games, role-playing games, a good glossary index, beautiful, just beautiful photography throughout, so it's one of those things that it's like a bit of a coffee table book, I guess. You can sort of turn to what you like, and just it's a quick little read, and of course they've got the best games in here. So these are the adventure games. They interviewed Phil and I, and we sort of talked about them a little bit. I'm really glad. Owen's a really lovely person. I got to meet him. I got to meet them at Essen, actually, maybe Weekend Games Expo, and yeah, I'm really. It's one of the. It's nice to see board game journalism generally sort of going from strength to strength, and tabletop gaming magazine, for example, and more and more publications. Senate, which I'm really, really sad. We need to get some sort of petition. I can't find a way how to get it here in the Czech Republic, or at least not easily. Maybe I just need to be prepared to pay for it. Unfortunately, I think the cost of the postage means that it's sort of kind of double the price if I want to get it here. But and there's no sort of online version, which I understand. But they do really great stuff. Bears asks, have I read much of it? How would I compare it to version 1? I have not read a single thing. I think the form to me seems roughly similar to version 1. To be honest, it kind of layout's very similar, similar kind of highlights and the designer questions and things like that. So yeah, I think if you've got version 1, you're in for the same sort of thing here. So yeah, that's I'm pretty sure that you can get it on Amazon or at or at different bookstores. Obviously, Google it, Board Game Book. Cost of postage is going to go up. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about. Well, it's not so bad. Postage still within the EU is not too bad. But yeah, it's just this particular thing for a magazine being smaller. But I should say, huge shout out to Owen, who was still happy to mail this because I think I pledged to get a free pickup at UK Games Expo, and obviously Expo was cancelled, which meant that they were happy to post it out, and they were still happy to post it out to me in the Czech Republic rather than the UK, which is where I was originally when I pledged. So huge shout out, and yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I've got the other one near my bed as a sort of a, I sort of flick through it every now and then. Oh well, there's a good game to turn to just randomly, Irish Gauge. Really, really fantastic game that I've had. I'd really recommend, actually, just randomly there. It's not turning into Matt recommends random games, but yeah. So yeah, no, that was it. That was a really nice surprise. So yeah, the Board Game Book volume, and I'm sure you can get volume 1 and volume 2. So yeah, great to sort of look through, sort of a curated list. It's kind of the best of a particular year. So, and some beautiful photography, and yeah, and as someone, I think one of the things I find really important as a designer is to kind of keep up with what's just being released. And They do a really great job. There are still games I read about in these books that I had never heard of actually, or heard of very, very tangentially. So it's sort of nice to keep up with that. Yes, and yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, so Senate is based in the UK. It's Dan Jolin, and I'm forgetting the other editor of Senate, unfortunately. But it is fantastic. I would get up and get it. I don't know if that's a bit weird. It's just, but it's yeah, just really top stuff, and just really interesting articles. I love sort of taking just different journalistic approaches to board games rather than just reviews. I mean, reviews are also great, but finding different ways to explore the medium is a lot of fun too. And Nicholas is saying Matt recommends random games. Could be a sentiment. It could. And thankfully I'm actually playing a lot more games these days, so it's it could actually be possible. Thanks very much, Bez, Dan Dolan, and James Hunter. Yeah, I had the pleasure of being interviewed by Dan once, which was a lot of fun. You know, and also very, very good folks there. So yeah, all right. Time to change it up. Time to talk about a little bit of designing, maybe. I have no idea if anyone's here for design. Maybe, you know, I encourage you to shout out a one-word answer to "Why are you here?" Into the chat if you wish. But I assume that maybe some people are interested in game design, or you know, I don't have much else to offer. So if you came, you're expecting something else, then yeah, you'll be sadly disappointed. So let's see if I can share a screen, which is, you know, that scary point where I change what I'm doing. Let us try to do this. Okay. Right, share screen. See how it goes. Share. Okay. Hopefully people can see the screen. Let me know if you can't. Thanks for popping in, Paul. And yes, everyone out there, come by Paul's stream on Gaming Rules Vids at 7 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. European time. Paul's going to be playing through the solo mode of Chocolate Factory, another one of my games, co-designed with Brett Gilbert. And I'm hoping to drop by and sort of heckle Paul for, you know, his poor decisions. And I should also note that the solo mode is designed by David Digby, great designer and developer based in the UK. So yeah, that's 7 p.m. UK time, so in roughly a couple hours. Yeah, go out and check Paul's stream, and I think he's streaming right now. So yeah, so I assume that everybody can see. So this is, maybe I should make it slightly bigger. I don't know. This is my my game projects folder, which is somehow you know, followed on through I don't know, however many years of designing. I guess about 10 years. I just have one big folder on my laptop, and I make a new folder for every game. So you can see there are a few things in here. There are 175 items, and obviously I have not. You know, I'd love to be thought of as productive, but I have not come out with 175 games in the last 10 years. So obviously quite a few of these did not make it to the final product. And I thought it might be fun to just kind of, yeah, scanning for, yeah, yes. I feel like I should have prepared, you know, to kind of like blur out certain things so that people don't know what's going on. But my code names, I'm not going to say intentionally vague. I'm actually already very bad at naming things. I use the most generic kind of names, so I don't think there's going to be much information to go by. So yeah, I thought, you know, could do a bit of a postmortem, or even just a very brief sort of look at, and we can play. Can Matthew remember what you know, what is that game that he tried to design many years ago? So the first file here is from 2012. Actually, this is and you know, the other thing, of course, you see is like, oh, there's a folder. You know, there'll be all this sort of stuff, and then you see it's a single Excel spreadsheet. You know, fantastic. And what is this? This is a random spreadsheet where we've got start tiles, we've got special buildings, we've got different distributions for different number of players. We've got, you know, really descriptive titles like linear +2, linear +1, triangular, modified. Wow, okay, what a mess. Interestingly enough, I actually know what game this is. This is for the very first co-design between Brett and myself, which was called Venice. It was a sort of a 45-minute or so board game for 2 to 4 players, and it had a kind of cool double geography. So you had a sort of a worker who would walk around on the land and could cross over bridges, and then you also had a gondola which would go via the canals, and they would intersect sometimes, and you could always move one or the other, and you were trying to deliver things around Venice. The game, it was the first game we finished together, and it was the first game we pitched when we went to Spiel in 2012. We pitched it to a handful of publishers, and that was the first thing that I ever pitched to a publisher in person, actually. This spreadsheet does not do it justice at all, and I can very, very quickly, maybe I'm going to be really, really lucky. I'm still here, but no. I was looking very, very quickly in my sort of old prototypes drawer because I thought I might still have a prototype of it. Yeah, it's interesting enough. I think it's one of the games that I actually quite enjoy. I think we did a reasonably good job with it, actually, but it kind of never caught a publisher. I don't think it was actually ever really being considered for publication. And a core part of that game, which may be why I won't show it more, is actually been we put it into a new sort of card game form, and that is going to be published and hopefully will be released next year. So yeah, nothing ever completely sort of dies, hopefully. Yeah, so okay, that's a nice start to the. I can actually remember the game and say something vaguely interesting about it. Thanks for welcome, Daryl. Thanks very much for popping by. Hope this is this sort of Matthew Dunstan variety hour is not too disinteresting. So the next game here is Now Boarding. We have a single CSV file called Cards A, very descriptive, and then you see we have some flights and customers. And it seems that maybe the flights are going to be to particular different types of things. So we've got nature, historical, beach, and they match what the customers want. And that is all that is left of that great idea that I had about 6.5 years ago. So yes, notice a lesson for maybe newer game designers. Maybe put a little bit more in your files. Maybe put, even if you can't write rules, just write a little note so that when you go back, maybe you'll be able to remember something of what you've done of that time, so that it's not lost. Because as you saw with Venice, you never know when some part of an idea is going to be reworked, recalibrated for something new to come. The one I want to show, I'm going to skip over this Artisans because unfortunately I feel it's also it's not as poorly populated as some of the folders, but this one actually has images, and I actually remember a little bit. It even has rules, which is just incredible. This is the first folder that I found that actually has rules. I should note that this is Brett's template for rules, which I, of course, shamelessly stole from my own projects as well. But I can't, of course, get it to look as good as he does. Yeah, I even have a bunch of ideas and notes on the game, and I think this had a sort of a rondel where you would be placing your if I can find it. So it was a tile-based game. So you were laying tiles out in a map, and I'm going to find the tiles here. And I can go into this in another stream, but I mean, a lot of these files are related to, these are sort of different images, different icons. And I use InDesign data merge to sort of merge them all together and make cards, or to make tiles. The tiles down here, for example. And yeah, so you had these sort of different, I think the tiles you took, if they had a certain building on them, they would trigger an action, but you're also trying to sort of connect up different regions together. Sort of, and this is a good, maybe a reasonable example of sort of the level of quality design that goes into prototypes. And you might think that, oh well, this was Matthew designing, 6 or 7 years ago. I'm sure he's progressed much further than that, but I haven't at all. And again, it's just things have to be functional. They don't have to be, beautiful. And especially for a first prototype, when you're not, this never got pitched to a publisher, never went past, the second or third version. So yeah, but I seem to remember, I was trying to find this before. I had a kind of a heptagonal like board, and you would be placing cards around that board, and then you were trying to, if you put a card on a space on the heptagon, it would trigger the spaces next to it, and it kind of had a nice look. I even made reference cards, would you believe? So yeah, I should note that I, expect quite a bit of sarcasm on this stream. So also some great numbering when you start with A and then you switch numbers. I can't say I'm very good at that, but yeah. No, the heptagon wasn't, well, the nice thing in Adobe Illustrator, you can make a heptagon. They have just a polygon tool, and you can just keep increasing the number of sides. And it wasn't a very small heptagon. It was like quite a chunky sort of player board. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. Grid Euro sounds like some dirty German techno. Well, it seems like there's enough interest that everyone wants to know what Grid Euro is. So I feel like I should look at Grid Euro. Let's have a look. Grid Euro, board 1, random files. I should have probably looked at these first. I'm excited to take a nap. Yes, thank you very much, Ross. Yeah, exactly. Yes, go to sleep, all the children. This will put everyone to sleep. The funny thing is, I actually Grid Euro. Well, there you go. There's a bit of a map there. There's some quests. Oh my gosh, the excitement is just off the charts. Everybody likes some cubes. So that is there's some shields. Some good Euro shields. There's a guild board. Everyone likes tracks. Like that's when you have Euro in the title, you have to have some tracks in your game. So good thing that I followed through with that. Have some buildings. Here's awesome. Some classic Grid Euro stuff. But yeah, I have no more than that. Here are some boards that have spaces for stuff to be put on. So maybe you're building the buildings on the board and you get coins. And it's in a grid, so it was all in the title. I don't have much more. It was funny because when I read Grid Euro, I was thinking, I wonder if this has something to do possibly with Monumental, because you have that kind of grid of cards. But no, this was before that time. I actually think I know this was from the period, I guess, from this period in 2014. If you actually look at these dates, there were like 4 different projects in May. And I think this was a time in my relative early designing career where I was infatuated with Stefan Feld. I still am to a certain degree. I enjoy a lot of his games very much. And I kept wanting to make a Stefan Feld-like game. And it's a perfectly fine place to start as a designer. But it's, I would make a whole prototype, take along to the playtest in Cambridge, which was once a week at the time. I'd play it once and it just wouldn't live up to my expectations, and I'd trash it and I'd completely make a new thing the next week. And I'd keep doing that. And it was, you don't make any progress doing that. So don't do that, number one. I mean, it's good to explore ideas, but yeah, it was definitely from this time where I was really trying to emulate this type of medium weight Euro game that I really enjoyed playing, but I've actually learned that it's just not something I'm particularly good at. Strangely enough, it's something, if anyone's out there in chat and would like to work with me on a sort of medium weight Euro, I'd love to. And I have made a few, like Pioneer Days is a good example, but it's strange, and maybe one day I'll talk about the kind of disconnect between games you like to play and the things you design. So Bruno Cathala always says that he just likes to design games that he wants to play, and there are a lot of designers like that. And I want to play the games I design too, but I don't know if I'm, my tastes in gaming are not necessarily always aligned with what I'm working on as a designer. So yeah, that might be enough of a brief interlude. But Ross is right. You know, they could do 100 stream. So it's like stream number 347. You know, Matt's 347th idea. I should note that also that these, you know, this doesn't even include all the ideas that I have in notebooks and in you know, in digital note-taking apps, which never get even into a folder where you work on something. So yeah, and it's kind of it's a funny. I'm hoping that as we keep going down, there might be a bit more detail and a few more interesting stories. But with Grid Euro, I feel that we'll leave it there. I think for that. So I think cognizant of not wanting to take too much time. So maybe full documentary. I didn't expect the Grid Euro was going to become so popular. You know, it's and I would have come up with a much better title that I hadn't thought about. You know, when I wanted to. Yeah. Jay Foolsguard asks, when you first work on an idea, do you start digitally? That is actually a very good question. I struggle myself knowing what is actually best for me. I would say a lot to other people to not work digitally, actually, because there's a whole bunch of distractions on computers that you will, you know, when you fire up your computer and you try and work on an idea, you know, there's so many ways you can get distracted and just don't end up finishing one, you know. And I did the same thing. You know, in the morning I'll get up and I'll think, oh, I'm going to work on a game this morning, and then I'll end up just watching YouTube videos or something. So I think it definitely has its dangers. Also, with paper, it's just more immediate. You get immediately to be able to play something. That being said, I think for certain games where you feel like you would want enough content to kind of get a bit of an idea of how the game will play, like if you need to still make like 30 cards, even 30 cards where you have to write text, like I'm quick enough now with data merge and various, like I have a good technique to generate those by just writing the text in a Excel spreadsheet, that in a way that is actually is a quicker way to get something playable, because, you know, I can quickly do that. It takes me, you know, 2 minutes to template it, put in a template, print it off, cut it up. So I don't think there's a right way or wrong way, and I don't even know. There's not one way I start. I guess I do start more and more digitally. I think that's also partly because I cannot describe how horrendous I am at, you know, any sort of artistic talents, you know, and I'm not sure if people say like my scrawl, you know, even for just normal writing, you know, it's hard enough to even know what, if I scroll something down, even when I was trying to play the game, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. So yeah, I guess I do digitally, and I'm more and more actually putting ideas down digitally. So if I just have an idea, I'll put it, I would have normally written in a notebook, but now I do it more and more on the Notes app on my Mac or on my phone, because I've got a bit more used to using my phone to write. I always sort of thought I don't want to write a long thing on a phone, but I've got a bit more used to it. But I still like my notebook. It's just everyone wants to know what. No, I'm not saying people want to know, but I'm always sort of curious about. You know, the kind of notebook collections of designers, and I ended up just buying like 20 of the same kind of, you know, the almost like school book kind of things, because I can't do spirals. Like spirals are great because they sort of open easily on the table when you're trying to write, but yeah, I don't know. I've got kind of used to, and I sort of have the dates on the front, and yeah, you're always interested about how long it takes to get through one notebook. It's sort of, I don't know, it's a weird. Again, like you see these GDC talks, game developers conferences, where people do postmortems, they look at their careers, and I feel like a weird sort of side thing I should plot is like which number of notebook I was on and how many months it took me to get through that notebook, and I wonder if that tells me how sort of productive I was. You know, was I doing more playtesting? Did I have more ideas? You know, this one, which has basically gone through the pandemics from January this year to September. Was, you know, that's about 9 months. It's probably pretty long. So I don't know, maybe I just wasn't right. I mean, obviously wasn't playtesting as much. So that is a aside. So thank you for sticking with me for that. We are at an hour, and I think that is probably going to do for a first stream. I'll save Tiny Islands for another time. I am not sure what time I'm generally going to stream, and I guess it's sort of depend. I'm not sure if this sort of time is a good time for people generally, or if it's more of an evening thing. I don't want to clash with. Obviously, there's a bunch of folk already streaming who I really respect, and some who are right here in the chat that I don't want to sort of clash with. So maybe I need to. Does anyone know if there's like a kind of a agglomeration of board game personalities, reviewers, / designers, and streaming times? Has anyone sort of collated that? It'd be good to just find where my niche is, so that I'm not not overlapping with anybody. So okay, so Ross did. Okay, so Ross has a list. I will check out Ross's list. Yeah. So Bess wants to get into actually using notebooks. She wants to have scraps of paper, cards. Oh, she just has scraps of paper and cards. Everything's sort of. Yeah, I mean, I still do that too. What you can't see, well, maybe you can see, not quite the magic behind that I've hidden behind these boxes is how I, this is where it still happens, where I still have more of these cards. I'm just scrolling. These were meetings with, actually was pitching the Cosmos this afternoon. Actually, it was kind of our Essen meetings, but not at Spiel, sadly enough. But this is taking notes for them that I'll put later on the computer. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Ross saying it started as proper schedules, but it's well over 100 people and lots of chop and change when they stream. Yeah, no, I know it's. I guess you're never going to be able to not clash with people. But oh, you took the times off it. Okay, all right. Well, I'll have a look around and just try not to clash with people. I mean, this time for me is not too bad. I'm more of a. I guess I work better in the mornings, so maybe saving that for work and streaming in the evenings. It's weirdly energizing. I really don't know where the time went, but hopefully it was interesting. This time of day is generally quiet, to be fair. Okay, so yeah, maybe around this time might be where I live. But I will end and say thank you so much. Actually, really means a lot to me. Thanks for sticking with it. I hope it was a little bit interesting, a little bit of fun. You're all great folk, and so please check out what each of you are doing. I'll find a better way to somehow point people to streams. Once I know how to raid, I'll raid things. That's once I figure all of that out. And I hope you all have a really great weekend. Stay safe and enjoy time until next week. Also, feel free to drop me a line on Twitter. I'm at wisegoldfish, or I don't know if you can message on Twitch, but maybe you can. If you want to see a particular topic for the stream, if you want to see the sequel to Grid Euro, maybe there's Grid Euro 2, Too Fast, Too Gritty, somewhere in that folder. So if you want to see that, then check that out next week. And have a great weekend, and catch you all next time. Bye.